Hey, and welcome back. Recently, when I was down in Milwaukee playing a gig, I got the chance to hang out with a really good friend of mine, Mitch Shiner. Mitch is a wonderful drummer and percussionist, and he's someone that I really admire musically and have been lucky enough to work with in the past. While we were hanging out, he asked if I might be able to take this old floor tom that he had and didn't use and turn it into a bass drum so that he could leave it at a venue where he's playing at regularly to be part of a house kit. Now, this set already did have a 22-inch bass drum, and he was planning to leave that there too for some of the louder rock gigs, but he wanted to take this 16-inch floor tom and turn it into something a little more jazzy to be used for his gigs. And after chatting on a few ideas we could do, he sent me home with this drum to fix up on my own. So let me go grab it for you. So as you can probably tell, this is a Yamaha Stage Custom Nouveau series, and it's a 16 by 16 inch floor tom in what Mitch describes as Chicago Bears orange. Also, he does acknowledge that the Bears still suck, and he asked me if I could refinish it to any other color. So originally, he asked me if I'd be able to cut down the depth and put a new bearing edge on it, and after going back and forth about some different things that could work, I decided to come up with this solution that would be less permanent in case he does ever want to sell this kit again. Over the years, I've seen a few different floor tom to snare drum conversion kits online, so I figured this would be a good chance to try one of those out and show you how it all works here. Alright, so I know that Sweetwater does offer one of these conversion kits, I believe made by Gibraltar, so let me just start by looking that up. Yeah, so this is the one I was thinking of. I think this was designed by Ron Dennett, and they offer it in 2 different thicknesses depending on the floor tom brackets that are on your existing drum. And I know for the Yamaha kit we're working with, we would need the 10.5. Now in theory, this does come with everything you'd need, including 2 bass drum spurs, which you'd connect into 2 of the leg mounts for the floor tom, a bracket that clips onto the tom hoop and allows you to connect a pedal to play, and then finally this cool bracket that clips into the 3rd floor tom leg mount, but then allows you to connect a tom or something else above it, almost like one of those old rail style mounts on vintage kits. Now because the drums we're working with are Yamaha, this rail mount won't work for us because they use their own hex style rod that's more horizontal as opposed to vertical. But this bracket is really the main component of what we need. Now unfortunately, Sweetwater doesn't sell this product on their own, but if you were to go search around the internet for a product by Gibraltar that was a floor tom to kick pedal riser, you would be able to find it sold separately for right around $50. So I'm going to choose to do that, but if you were doing this project and wanted to spend $180 on this whole kit, this might be the route to go. Now since I'm only buying that bracket, I'll still need the spurs. And I know that Head makes these vintage style spurs that clip into more of the standard tom mount style. So we'll go ahead and order these from Sweetwater. Now before you buy these, you do want to confirm that the rod is the same thickness as your brackets, usually those being 9mm, 10.5, or 12.5. But I do know that these brackets are 10.5 and they'll work on these Yamaha floor tom mounts. Alright, so the last thing we need to buy are drum heads for both the resonant and batter side. When it comes to the batter side, I really like these Evans Emad heads, and I know that they offer a 16-inch size that'll work for both floor tom hoops and for bass drum style hoops, because those have different collars on them. Alright, so we're going to go with this Emad coated style, just because I think it'll be a bit warmer than the clear head, so let's go ahead and add that to the cart. And for the resonant side, we're just going to go with the black head, so I'm going to check out these Evans Onyx drum heads and get what we need. I think these are a similar texture and appearance to like the Remo black suedes, but in my experience those black suede heads tend to show their use on them with a lot of stick marks and such. And plus, Evans has a pretty good rewards program, so sometimes that does sway me towards buying Evans heads. And since this is a head for toms, we don't have to worry about any specifics with ordering a bass drum versus tom style 16-inch head. Alright, so it looks like our order here is going to be $106.97 before tax. So with everything now ordered to complete this project, we're going to have to wait a few days before we can get any further along. While I wait for these parts to show up, I figured I could give you a better look at this drum. Yamaha Stage Customs have been around forever, and I recommend them to tons of people in schools, but this Advantage Nouveau variation is a bit different with these plastic lugs that aren't fixed to the shell like a standard one. I think the concept is cool and innovative, but I worry about these being plastic and taking tension from a lug holding on a head. I think in theory, this would make it easier to change heads since you don't have to remove the entire tension rod from the lug, but I'm so used to doing things the old-fashioned way that this was a bit of a weird experience for me. Also, one other thing I'm not a huge fan of are these leg mounts, because they require a drum key to tighten and loosen the legs, as opposed to a pre-installed wing screw. Other than that, this is a great drum, and I'm sure it's going to work fine when we set it up as a bass drum. Jumping ahead about a week, both of my orders showed up, and I could get to unboxing and starting this conversion. The first and smallest of my 3 boxes had the Gibraltar bracket to attach to the hoop and pedal. I actually have a bracket very similar to this hoop mount, and it's great for mounting a variety of things off a drum like a cowbell, splash cymbal, or even a microphone. The second box included half of my Sweetwater order, and inside this box was the bass drum legs and the Evans Onyx Head. And finally, in the third box, and the most obnoxiously sized, was the Evans Emad Head. I'm guessing this came from a different warehouse or was drop shipped directly from the manufacturer, but I can't get over how oversized this box was for just a single 16-inch drum head. So with all these parts now in hand, I could get on to assembling this drum. Unlike most of my other DIY projects, this is really just a matter of changing a couple heads and attaching a few pieces onto this drum with a drum key. There's really no specialized skill needed for any of this, so for any of my followers out there who don't have experience with woodworking or building, this is certainly something you could do. I do a number of projects that cost me almost nothing to do, but take a lot of work, and this one is almost the complete opposite, being that I spent around $150, but the DIY process of putting this all together was at most maybe 20 to 30 minutes. After getting everything assembled and playing a few notes, I decided that I needed to add a felt strip to the resonant head to kill some of the sustain. If this were going to be my own drum, I might add a porthole to the front head, but since I know Mitch will be using this for jazz, I decided to leave that decision for him to make. Before taking this drum into the studio to test out and record, I did sit down and add in the rewards points from these heads onto my Players Circle account. Players Circle is a rewards program for the entire Diodario brand, and every product they offer, from small accessories to drumsticks to heads, all have these codes that you can redeem online towards points to spend on any Diodario products you'd like. I've been doing this for years, and I think the value is actually pretty good in terms of how many points it would take you to get something like a free drum head. Additionally, once you reach the all access level, all these products you order with points ship free. It's really a great program and has definitely swayed me towards buying their products at certain times. I brought this drum into my studio to set up and play, and as you can see, there's a bit of a calibration to getting everything positioned correctly for your bass drum pedal. With any bass drum I set up, my goal is always to make sure when the beater makes contact with the head, it's positioned perpendicular to the floor, and that the drum is a touch higher on the front side to keep it from sliding forward when I play it. I recorded a demo of this drum at 3 different tunings, making sure to swap out the different muffling rings to show you the variety of sounds you can get from it. I also added some more stylized demos after that, so you can hear the change in sound from the processed and raw audio I recorded. After the demos play through, I'll come back and give you my final thoughts. after getting a chance to play with this drum for a bit and hear all of the demos, I think there's certainly a useful sound for this as a bass drum. I enjoyed this most at the lower tunings with the large muffling ring, and at the mid to high tunings with the small and large rings. But there's definitely a limited range of tuning if you want this to truly be a bass drum substitute. When I put on the headphones to record the backing track, I noticed it was a bit harder to hear the kick in comparison to the other parts of the set without having any input monitoring turned on for my kick mic. This tells me that there's definitely a volume threshold here with this drum compared to larger, more standard bass drums. Also, if I were using this on gigs, I might get a little frustrated with the setup and calibration process of getting the Spurs and kick mount to sit just right, as these floor tom brackets don't allow me to use memory locks. It's something I'm sure would get easier with more reps setting up, but if this were a drum I was doing for myself, I might opt to drill in some more typical rotating Spurs so that it would be easier to get a consistent setup a lot faster. All in all, I think this project was a simple success. Like I mentioned before, a number of my previous videos I've shared are projects that require a lot of work, and this conversion from floor tom to bass drum was something anybody can do themselves. It was my goal to not have this drum be permanently altered by drilling or cutting the shell, so I'm glad we were able to do that, just in case Mitch ever changes his mind or has an opportunity to sell this kit. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and I'd love to hear what you think about this drum, so let me know down in the comments. I'll have some Sweetwater affiliate links to the products I used in the video description, and that's a great way for you to support my channel without any extra costs added on to you. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on future video releases. And until next time, thanks.